Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us today on the third of 4 sessions that we present from Tuesdays to Fridays every second week. This workshop will be about how PowerOLAP interfaces with Excel spreadsheets. So we presume that you have got some knowledge about slicing views inside PowerOLAP, and we're not going to be spending so much time on it. But just to quickly talk about the other sessions, the first one is on Tuesdays always. That's a general introduction to PowerOLAP and looking at the quick start manual that comes with your PowerOLAP personal software that by now I hope you've downloaded. The second on Wednesdays, that's the one where we look at the PowerOLAP interface in more depth. The third one today is about working with Excel, and the fourth one is about connecting with through a type of technology called Olap Exchange to external data sources. We'll also be looking like Access database or SQL database. We'll also be looking at the formula language inside the PowerOLAP database, and then also look at export and import of text files, which is another way of getting data into the PowerOLAP database. So these sessions are presented twice per month, once at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, US Eastern Time, and the other one at 3 p.m. US Eastern Time. Before we start with the presentation, I would just like to tell you a little bit more about our company called Paris Technologies. Paris, it's an acronym standing for Planning, Analysis, Reporting, Information Systems. Unlike other business intelligence tools that typically do historic and current reporting, although we can do that type of reporting as well, we pride ourselves in our ability to look into the future and assist companies to do budgets, forecasts, and typical reforecasts of the data so that they can keep track of the financial year as it goes along and be able to adjust in an agile way through reforecasting to keep track of the preciseness of their budget and forecasts. So today I want you to imagine again, like yesterday, that you are the financial manager of a company that sells computer hardware, and we are going to create some budget reports. The first one is going to be a product by month report. The second one is going to be a region by month report. The third one will allow users to respond for product budgets, be responsible for product budgets to determine their own budget logic in Excel spreadsheets and then write it back into the PowerOLAP database. The fourth one will show us the top 5 products across all regions, and then the last one will be a drill through or drill down report that will show you the detail that make up a specific point at an aggregated level in PowerOLAP. So on our way through these reports, we will be looking at various Excel-based PowerOLAP formulas. The first one is going to be Olap database, then Olap member, and as we go along, Olap Readwrite. These are different ways that we can export data from the PowerOLAP database into Excel. Olap Readwrite, Olap table, Olap write table, Olap Pivot, and query, which is the drill down report. And then if we've got time, we'll also look at Olap member index and Olap member level. So let's jump into a demonstration. I am going to take a, we've got the database called LDV Corp already open, and I'm going to create a slice, a product by month slice. Let's see, we switch this one and bring products down to the rows. And then we're going to only take the first quarter, invert them, delete the others, click OK. So the first methodology that we're going to use to export to Excel is called Olap Readwrite. If you go into options, then it's possible to select the 4 different ways, the basic ways. The first one we're going to look at is Olap Readwrite. So when I then go to the slice ribbon and I click on the worksheet button, it will immediately create me an Excel spreadsheet. It's on my other screen, so let me just wait. Okay, there we go. So this is a spreadsheet that it has just created. We're currently looking at units sold. That's the budget for units, and we actually want to look at revenues. So I'm going to change the account member with this formula called Olap member, which effectively displays the member number in a natural order. So you can see that units is number 1, revenues will be number 2, so that changes to number 2. If I press F9, you'll see the numbers coming through for Australia. Revenues for these products and these months. Let me apply some general formatting here. There we go. So the first thing that I want to show you is if I add a column here, January percentage of first quarter, and put in an Excel formula equals January divide by first quarter, and then autofill this down and add some percentage formatting over here. So when I change this, the other thing that I want to show you is if I add a graph. So let's add a graph for January through March for all of the detailed products. Insert a graph. Let's take this one over here. Or let's see, hang on. Let's do that one over there. Yep. So this is a graphical representation. Now what you need to remember is that whatever you have got available in Excel in terms of the formula language and Excel functionality, you still will have the ability to use that functionality in with the PowerOLAP interface together. So everything that's available inside Excel seamlessly integrates with the PowerOLAP formulas. So if we look then at the other formulas that we, in this spreadsheet that we have got here, the Olap database formula basically connects us to the database name, and with your PowerOLAP personal software, you will only be able to open a local database. In other words, not one that is open on a server that will allow you to do collective reporting through a group of users. That's what the server environment is for. So if you were to connect your server, then the server name would go into this first argument, which is currently empty. But now, because we're connecting to a local database in a local location or in a network location, then the full path is in input at the end in the last in the third argument of this Olap database formula. So there are many other formulas. Let's just show you quickly. If I go down to the PowerOLAP functions, there are about 160 of these Excel-based formulas that do various things to connect to and communicate with the PowerOLAP database. As I said, we just have time for a couple of them today. But if you want to know more, and let me show you that just quickly. If you go to the paristech.com/help page on our website, you will be able to access our help file, and there you will be able to look at the different PowerOLAP-based formulas as well as the Excel-based formulas with detailed descriptions of each of them. So one of the things that you can do with the Olap Readwrite, so let's just create another one. The other way that you can create a Excel spreadsheets is take a view from an existing slice that we've saved previously. So this time I'm going to open one that's already been saved. I'm going to create an Olap Readwrite spreadsheet with it as well. And then I'm going to tile these two so that we can see them both at the same time. So we're looking at prior actual. Let's look at current year budget instead. So there's my current year budget, press F9, and you'll see that this value over here is the same as that value over there. Let's just add some formatting here. There we go. So observe that here we're looking on the page, we're looking at desktop revenue. And on the rows and columns, we're looking at the regions and the months. So this is our second report, region by month. This is our first report, product by month. Here you're looking on the page members. In other words, each of these sheets now represent a template for a number of other reports. So if we look at the number of members that we have in the region dimension, let's say there's about 30 of them. So you've got 30 multiplied by about 6 here, so 30 times 6. And the number of accounts, let's say that's also about 20 accounts. So 30 times 20 times 6. That's the number of reports that you have got access to on this individual workbook, which is a very big difference to having each of these on different sheets like you would have in a normal Excel-based model of the same data, where you would have to link different sheets together, use Excel formulas over and everywhere. So what you need to understand is that when I input a value here, let's make this 50,000 and press F9, then the 50,000 changes on both the sheets. Now the values do not go from one sheet to another, which is what would happen in a normal Excel workbook scenario. It actually gets written back into the PowerOLAP database. So that's the value that we have input in the one Excel spreadsheet. It goes into the database, and when I refresh these Olap Readwrite formulas, which basically reads a value and writes a value. So if I change the value, it writes it back. When I press the F9, it reads it back into the Excel spreadsheet. Other thing that I want to show you is if I change a value here on an aggregate. So the first quarter is actually the sum of January through March. If I try and change that value, it will prevent me from changing a value in there. The other advantage of the Olap Readwrite formula is that I can actually move formulas around to my heart's delight, and they will still function. Let's just open up them. So they still function. I'm going to move them back. So the Olap Readwrite lets you do everything precisely in the way that you would want to do it in a spreadsheet. It allows you to take a single value. So if I add here total regions at the top of my spreadsheet, and I say I want to copy this formula. Let's say this is a requirement for management that we want the total value for revenues for that product at the top of my report. Then I can do so by moving that to total regions and pressing F9. There's my 6 million, which is the same one that I've got at the bottom. So the Olap Readwrite gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of where you want to see values coming from the PowerOLAP database. So let's just copy these two formulas over into this spreadsheet. and press F9. So that's the value again. Now, what if I want to add it, instead of adding it at the end, I'm going to insert it in here. And I'm going to move them from there to there and autofill them down to the bottom. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. That's more like it. There we go. So it is possible to insert in between the different values that comes from the PowerOLAP database additional Excel formulas. So in the Olap Readwrite, each cell brings through a single value. So in this sheet, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 times about 30. That's the number of PowerOLAP Readwrite formulas that I've got on this sheet. Now let me show you the second way of creating Excel spreadsheets. So I'm going to change the option from Readwrite to Olap Table and go back to the slice. And I can select it over here as well, but because we've changed it to Olap Table already, I can press the top of this button. It creates me another Excel spreadsheet, which looks like this. Now let's assume we want to do the same thing that we did before and insert a column there. Put that on the side. What I want to see here is the other one that is region by month. And let's take these two formulas, copy them and paste them in here and see whether it works. Let's do that again. Copy, paste. Okay, so the title of the column is in there, but when I press F9, it removes the Excel spreadsheet, Excel formula, the Olap, the normal Excel formula. So the difference between the Olap Readwrite is that there is a formula per cell. The Olap Table has got a single formula at the top of the page that brings through a matrix of a report. So in this case, it brings us the page members, which is currently a budget, desktop, and revenues. And then all at the same time, it will bring me all of these regions and all of these month members. So the big difference here is that the one calculates faster. So Olap Table, because it's only one query, it calculates faster than the Olap Readwrite formulas. So the Olap Readwrite has got more flexibility, but the Olap Table is faster. The difference also is that you cannot insert extra columns. You can insert empty columns. That's one thing that I can do with the Olap Table. But the Olap Readwrite, I can insert anything in between my Olap Readwrite formulas and move them around. So the flexibility that I've got on the Readwrite is bigger than on the table. Let's now look at the next one. So that is going to be Olap Write Table. And let's have a look at that one. So comparing this now to the Olap Table, let's do the following. We're going to add some formatting. We're going to insert that column that we had there. And I'm going to do the same here as I did in the other one. So when I double click on the Olap Table, you'll see nothing much happens except it reveals us where the formula is pointing. But when I double click on the Olap Write Table formula, it shows me a drop-down box where I can select different things. So the first default is display the cube value. So if there were a member called January percentage of first quarter, which I want to change quickly because that is an exclamation mark. So let's change that to first quarter. If there were a member then called January percentage of first quarter in my database, which I will add afterwards, then it will bring me through those values over here. That's the first option. The second option, which is what we want to look at now, is to use this use Excel formulas where I input an Excel formula like I did before with the Olap, divide by first quarter. And now if I press F9, it keeps me, despite the fact that it references this whole area, it keeps the Excel-based formula. So let's fill that column, F9, and you see that it comes through nicely. Let's add some percentage formatting. So it keeps the Excel formulas intact. Now, when I go into PowerOLAP, you'll see that in my month dimension, I don't have such a member yet. So we're going to create that. Let's just go back to this one and copy that label just to make sure we spell it correctly. I'm going to add this member in the month dimension. And it's going to be called January percentage of first quarter. And I'm going to add it to our view in the same position where it is my Excel spreadsheet. So if I press F9 here, you'll see that none of the values have been written back into the PowerOLAP database. But when I select the third option over here, commit formula values to cube, and then I think it's already there. Let's just see, F9. Yeah, it's already written those values. The moment I click OK, or I release the spreadsheet, release this button when I click OK here, it immediately writes these values back into the PowerOLAP database. Let's just have a quick look at the other options. So clear formulas and display cube values would remove those Excel formulas and then bring through whatever is in the PowerOLAP cube. The next one, use Excel formulas and commit values. That will constantly, as I change values, it will write it back. Now you might not want to do that because if I change the page member like desktop or revenues, it will immediately write those values back into the PowerOLAP database. So that one has to be used with care. And the last one, write cube values, no read, will simply write the values that are in the spreadsheet back into the database, but not read them back from the database. And that is typically used with a very large report. So if you've got a very large Olap write table, which performs slower than the Olap table. So the fastest way of getting data out of PowerOLAP is using the Olap table instead of using the Olap write table. The Olap write table has got these extra advantages that you can have Excel formulas in between, and the Olap Readwrite is the slowest of the lot, but it has the possibility of formatting it exactly in the way that you want to see it. So let's look at the third report where we want to add another column in here for February percentage. So let's copy that. And then we want to go through a little exercise where, let's see how we can write that one. That would be February divide by first quarter and auto-fill that down. Now, very often we want to allow individual users to formulate their own budget figures. So instead of having it manually input, we might want to say that we want to increase February by 2%, but increase February based on January's figures by 2%, and March 3% based on February's value. So let's do that. And I'm going to write an Excel formula here, which is going to say, take January and multiply it by 1 plus the value percentage, and we are going to lock it in on row 8. That's it. and then autofill that one down. And then take this formula and do the same for March. So let's see whether that works correctly. Yes, so it takes the 3% and autofill that down, F9. So if I change my 2% to, let's say, 5%, then the values in this column will change, and the value for March is also changed. And then if I commit these values all to PowerOLAP, you'll see that the first quarter has now updated because they were written back into the PowerOLAP database, and the values in the PowerOLAP database were updated. That's why the first quarter changed. So when I first did the Excel formulas here, you did not see the formulas updating. So that's the budget exercise that I wanted to show you. The next one we're going to look at is going to be the Olap Pivot. So we're going to take another slice from this one over here. We're going to say Olap Pivot, and we're going to create that report that's going to show us the top products per region. Now let's add some formatting here. And now when I double click on the Olap Pivot, a similar interface that I can see inside PowerOLAP, when I can change my members across and put them on different rows and columns, my dimensions on different rows and columns, that I can do over here as well. So what I want to see here is the children of first quarter and its parent. And then in terms of the region, I want to bring the product below the region, and we are going to use the details. So there are different options here. The first one was a list where I select the different members that I want to see. Then I change it to the children, so the parent and its children would be displayed. If I had subsets here, I would be able to select a subset. Aggregates would only select the aggregate members. All will, as I believe the products is at the moment, will show us all of the products, but we want to see only the details. And of products, we also only want to see the details. So when I click now OK and press F9, you'll see that it shows us, for each region, it shows you the product. So this is a lengthy report, but now let's say we want to, two things that we can filter out here is, first of all, the empty columns. So I'm going to hide the empty rows. That's the first thing that I can do. And then it removes the empty rows. The other thing that I want to do is I want to filter based on the first quarter values. I want to filter the top region, the top products for all the regions together. So we can type top 5, click OK, press F9. Why did that not work? First quarter top 5. Nay, this is not working. Let's switch them around. No, that also didn't work. Let's try this again. So this is not working exactly the way that I wanted it to work. Let me show you how it would have worked in PowerOLAP so that you get the gist of it. So if I choose all of my detail regions and I remove my same functionality. Sorry, this is a live demo and I'm just going to improvise here. Delete. And now I'm going to constrain this slice just the way that I did it before. I'm going to pick first quarter, and we're going to pick top 5. Click OK. There we go. This is what I wanted to see in my Excel spreadsheet, which unfortunately we can't see now. Let's try and slice this to Excel and see what happens if I do this and take this out as an Olap Pivot into Excel. What happens then? No, it didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. So apologies for that. Let's continue with the final report that I wanted to show you, and that is the Olap query. So let's bring in some total regions here. Total region and total product. And I'm going to select the total product. And we're going to take that value and I'm going to double click on it and do a drill down, a multi-dimensional drill down, which will show me what values in the cube makes up this value. And when I press my Excel button, worksheet button, it creates me an Excel spreadsheet. That is also not working now. So let's just delete the other Excel spreadsheets that we've got open. I think that's our problem. I've got too many open. So let's go and remove Excel, all Excel instances. So Excel is closed. Let's try this again. Worksheet. There we go. There's my report. So this effectively brings through a report into Excel. Something that I want to add is that you can combine all of these different ways of creating values in Excel. You can combine them together in one workbook. So I can have an Olap Readwrite with an Olap query inside the same workbook. It's no problem. So the Olap query can now be changed so that if I select the total regions, instead of total regions, I select England, it will only show me the values for England. Similar techniques that I can do with the Olap Pivot. I can also delete rows and columns, and I can do a relational query, or if I've got a connection, when I've got a connection to an underlying data source, which we will look at tomorrow, you'll be able to drill through on the relational table, and then it will show you the values that are actually in the relational database and not just the lowest level of the PowerOLAP cube. Then the last thing that I want to show you, seeing that our time is running out a little bit, I'm going to open you this spreadsheet where I want to show you the formulas which I said we will look at if we've got time, the Olap member level. So what I'm doing here is determining the member level of my month member over here. So January is at the lowest level, which is at the second level. Total here is at the top level, which is level 0. The quarters are at level 1. And then what I did is I created some conditional formatting for all of these, for the whole region. So if my formula value in column B is a 0, then use the dark blue value. And if it is a 1, then use the light blue value. And for the rest, use the default Excel formatting. That's the one formula that I want to show you. And the other one is the Olap member index. So we can go down to PowerOLAP, Olap member index. So we're going to use the database, which is that one. And we're going to use the dimension, which is my month dimension, and the member is going to be this one over here. And let's see what happens if we autofill that. Yes, so there you've got it. Because I added that extra member, this one is now the second member going through to the 18th member. So it's basically the opposite of the Olap member formula, which the input is the member index number, and here the input is the member name. So that brings us to the end of our presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it. Apologies for that breakdown that I had. I think I had too many Excel spreadsheets open. I hope that you got the gist of what PowerOLAP can do with Excel spreadsheets. There's much more that I could show you, but we don't have time for that. If there are any questions, let's just have a look in the chat box. I see there are none. I thank you again for attending today's session, and I hope to see you in some of the other sessions, especially the second and the fourth session, which would aid you in understanding the PowerOLAP database and the PowerOLAP formula language and connecting to other data sources. So thank you very much again for attending today's session, and we're going to end this session now. Thank you. Bye-bye.